Hey guys, still here and welcome back to more Wargame Brendryen. Today it's going to be a ranked replay slash deck discussion because it was requested that I do a bit more deck review and I thought, well, why not? So, ranked generally does not favor South Africa, but I really wanted to try and make it work. So, this is the South Africa deck that I came up with. It's a South Africa general deck, it's not a motorized deck because I don't feel comfortable using that yet. The Logitab, fairly straightforward. We got a fob and a couple of Samuel 50 cargoes. Why the Samuel 50s and not the 100s? Well, shout out to Blitzwar here. He said, you know what, I'm going to try and resupply as many different things as possible, and for that the Samuel is, well, 4 times cheaper. And on top of that, you get a lot more of them. So if a couple of these get killed off, it's not as bad, because you get 17 of them, as opposed to a mere 6 of these, of the Samuel 100s. Then I got a Commandant in the Rattle 20. Why the 20? Well, I want to try and provide some sort of defense for the Commandant itself, so for the command infantry. And then an Olifant BV. I haven't actually used these in ranked yet, because I haven't really tested this deck that much. But if you have a more heavily contested area, then this vehicle is going to be it. The alternative is very lightly armored. Because you got the Rattle BV with one side armor. The same can be said for the Buffle, which doesn't even come with top armor. And the Caspier also comes with one side armor. So, despite me hating the 45 kilometer off-road speed, the Olifant BV is currently the best option that I have. Logistics. Flanking and just causing general mayhem is the tune of this deck. So, SASF and the Caspier K-Car. These guys come in Veteran, because I want to try and get 10, not 7. I might still adjust this, as I find that maybe 10 SASF is too many. And I can even go with 7, which would get me potentially even more use out of them. Casper K-Car to try and get some autocannon support, and I don't have to keep these units together. I can just drop off the SASF and then use the K-Car somewhere else. The B10 Unita. I considered the B10 as well as the Inflict. Eventually I ended up with the B10 because they are more multi-role. They can engage vehicles as well as infantry. Although infantry capacity is half of what the Inflict is. But I found that the Inflict is very, very specialistic. It does anti-infantry very well when they give the opportunity to do so. You only fire 7 rounds a minute. When it hits, you do 4 damage. This thing also only fires 7 rounds a minute, but it also has the potential to take out a transport if it gets too close. So I thought that was valuable enough to get the B10 in. Buffaloes in the Caspier Mark II. I considered going with the K-Car, but these guys are already 35 points, so I thought, you know what, the Caspier is good enough. Buffaloes 85 with their Milan F1 team. Some people consider these OP. I do not, because they are pretty easily suppressed with a couple of mortars. If you don't want to send a vehicle in, you can still hit them with mortars and then walk your own infantry in. You can bomb them. You still have plenty of options to deal with them. They are not invulnerable. These guys come in the Casper K2, the Casper Mark II. Very nice off-road transport at 90 kilometers an hour. Yes, you have even faster options in the Puma 330 and the Oryx, but I don't find that much use from the Oryx after I have deployed them. And considering that South Africa has great off-road speeds, I don't really feel like I need a helo at the moment. Infantry then, let's say more regular infantry. Mech-Inf 90 in the Rattle 20. These guys are there to provide autocannon support for the Mech-Inf. And the Mech-Inf can then use their FTS or FT5, I'm still not sure what it says, I think it's the FT5. To deal with vehicles up close. What they unfortunately cannot do is fire 20 rounds a minute. That would be great, but South Africa just does not do that with the shock infantry units. In case I would opt for the Parabat, you have the same problem. They only do 10 rounds a minute, both for the RPG-7 as well as for the FT5. There is no other option. There's just no other option. There are no infantry units that have an incredibly high rate of fire, like the 20 rounds a minute rate of fire that you can get on some anti-tank weapons. So, well, this is it then. The Rattle 20 for autocannon support as mentioned, and then a couple of low-ranking Bokop. The Bokop are mostly sacrificial lambs. Don't tell them. They're there to walk into a building while the Rattle 20 provides fire support. And it can do that with both the autocannon as well as the Milan. Generally, Milans don't hit anything, but I don't have a lot of other HEGM options in this deck. I didn't want to go with a slot for the HEGM infantry unit, where they hit the Milans. So I decided to go with infantry plus an HEGM transport. Supports. I need to make sure that I have plenty of smoke, so the Rattle 81. I considered going with the Lund 60, because they have just a far higher rate of fire. These things fire 18 rounds a minute. These things fire 22. Okay, it's not that much higher. These things, however, are less micromanagement intensive, because they don't need to be resupplied as often. You get 150 rounds versus 66. So my thinking is I can just fire a couple of shells, drop a couple of mortar rounds on target or smoke, and then run away. Because I don't really need to go back to base that often. And of course, if you want to, you could potentially switch out, let's say, maybe the Bokop or the Mech Inf. Can they have that option? Yeah, you can go with the Rattle 60, which is basically the same unit, or at least the same mortar, but you have even fewer rounds. You got 42. Then we got the Rhino. I need to be able to snipe high-value targets, and my air tab isn't doing it. So the Rhino is there to snipe high-value targets. 7 HE, extremely mobile, even some armor. This thing can definitely work. The Valkyrie, if I want to suppress a larger area, I have seen, again, Blitz War, but I think also, was it Genghis Wolves or one of the other guys, use the Valkyrie just to stun larger units or larger areas and then walk in. And then we got the base Cactus as well as the Roikat for anti-air defense. The Kotal, basically the Cactus. You also have this in the option of the SAHV, which is basically a Crotal on steroids. They have even better range, they have a 5% better accuracy. The vehicle itself is the same, but I wasn't quite interested in that 15% or 15-point price hike. So I decided to get more of these, 5 of these at Hardened, instead of 4 of these at Hardened. Because, well, this allows me to just spread them out a little more. And then the ZAHVM for further anti-air defense. Planes. Keep in mind, both the Cactus as well as the Roikat do not have a lot of missiles. 4 shots and you're done. Which ties in nicely with providing more SAML cargo units. Recce. Roikat 76 for flanking maneuvers. Lund 90 semi-flanking maneuvers, but these things are very weak. They're very fragile. These things have at least a little bit more armor, but not by much. Trackers, if I want to passively keep an eye on something. The XH1 Alpha, if I want to more actively scout something / hit something with an autocannon. And then we got Para Pathfinders in order to deal with infantry inside of a town. I don't treat these as much as recon units as I do as anti-infantry units, because they get that Y2 grenade launcher. A whole 1 vehicle. This is the only dedicated HEGM vehicle that I have in my deck. The Rattle ZT3A1. As of yet untested. I have not yet deployed this, but I still had 1 activation point left and I simply didn't know where else to put it. Helos, the Roy Valk, in order to deal with HEGM threats, or rather threats that need to be dealt with through an HEGM, and the Ingwe is a very nice missile. It's 70% accuracy, it's 50% stabilized, you got 26 AP. The only thing is it's not fire and forget, but if you would get fire and forget, the price would be even greater. I think you could easily get it for 140, because then you're going more or less in the terrain of the longbow. And it has the Mistral, and it has a very nice autocannon, the GA1. GA1 also comes on the Beta 90 as well as the Beta 87. Let me contrast these quickly. These are very nice to support against enemy infantry units. They both have the snap rocket pods, which are accurate, they fire fast, and they do a lot of damage. And they both can use different weapon systems depending on what the threat is. I call on the Beta 87 if I want to deal with infantry units. If I have a tank threat and I either don't have the points or the patience to wait for the Roy Valk, then I get the Beta 90, because it comes also with the Ingwe. It just does not have... well, how should I put this? It's a different type of gunship. Because the Roy Valk can engage aerial threats. Oh, that's the wrong helo. The Beta 90 can engage ground threats. It's very good in that role. Then the air tab. This is going to be a bit weird. One of my concerns about South Africa is that it just does not have a lot of anti-tank. its AT capability is very limited. You look at my infantry tab, I got the Unita, which is 12 AP, I got the Buffaloes, which is 17 AP, and I got very close infantry mech-inf with the FT5 at 23. Any T-72 BU is going to just smile in your face and go, yeah, right, you can't touch me. That's why I get 2 flights of Buccaneers. Now, you might look at these units and go, that is terrible. 35% accuracy, you're never going to hit anything with that. But this is accuracy at maximum range. Maximum range. So it starts to fire at 3,500 meters, and considering that it is semi-active, it is guided, the closer you get, the more likely it is that your missile will hit. And that's what I'm banking on. Because I have seen these Buccaneers, they look very inconspicuous, but I've seen them pull off some incredible kills. There is a clip on my channel, a very short vid, I think it's less than a minute, where Sparky pulls off a beautiful double kill with a Buccaneer. In order to keep the Buccaneer safe, and that was a bit of a twist in my thinking that I had to go through, in order to keep my HEGM planes safe, I'm bringing a Cheetah D as a seed aircraft. And, well, it's that weird seed aircraft that can also target ground, because it's, I don't know, it's this weird standoff barb missile. It is supposedly anti-radar, but it can do more than that. And Carvers in order to deal with aerial threats to, well, basically to the Buccaneers and the Cheetah. So it works like this. The Cheetah comes in, preferably escorted by a Carver, potentially with a Buccaneer as well. And the Cheetah takes out or suppresses enemy anti-air defenses. The Buccaneer takes out the anti-air defense if it's still active. Otherwise, it goes for the intended target, which could be a tank. And the Carver is there to prevent any aerial units from tackling my own aircraft. So that's the thinking of this deck. South Africa in ranked general is a weird prospect, because the moment that somebody starts to deploy heavier mechanized units, you're going to be in trouble. But I have a replay coming up that shows you that it can work. You just gotta be blisteringly quick. Small addendum, I completely skipped over the tank tab. I got the Logim for my, well, it's my heaviest tank. It hits pretty hard, but it does not take a lot of hits very well. The Oliphant Mark 1 Bravo Optimum. This one is mostly, I use it as a sniper. It's a stationary unit. It does have a decent amount of AP with a good rate of fire, decent survivability, and nice accuracy when sitting still. Don't fire from the move. And the Roycat 105 if I want to do flanking and hit hard, as well as the Roycat 76 Mark 1 Charlie if I want to do flanking on the cheap. You could argue that the Roycat 76 Mark 1C as opposed to the Roycat 76 Recon is superfluous. Yes, maybe. You can then delete this unit and you can free up 2 points, which you can spend either in the tank tab or in the vehicle tab. I've seen people use the Ferret Mark IIs. I, for one, don't really use them that well. So I decided not to go with those and instead to give myself more options in the form of the Roycat 76. Sorry, that was a bit of an addendum. I completely skipped over the tank tab and I went from support straight to vehicles and recon and the others. So here we go. Alright, on to the replay. Alright, on to the replay. The replay is unfortunately replay only because I was test driving this deck and I didn't actually think it would work. So I didn't bother recording the live gameplay. Now, my plan here on Paddy Field is not really to contest the area of golf, because it's a bit difficult for me to clear. It's a bit difficult for me to hold. Yes, I could potentially use this forest here and maybe the tree line there, but in a stand-up fight, South Africa just doesn't do well. You need to go and flank. So instead, I decide to have a small pocket that goes here, crosses the bridge, and decides to start flanking. Eventually coming up across this bridge here. That was the plan. In the meanwhile, I want to have just a couple of units over there in the buildings, but my main push is going to just go here, directly bypassing Bravo. I don't want to go there and immediately take up that forest. If I can take that forest, I might be able to hold it and then capture Bravo, Alpha, and Hotel, allowing him Charlie, Foxtrot, and Golf, but maybe I can contest Golf or, and potentially later on in the game, get ACV into Charlie and neutralize his 2-pointer. It won't be easy, but it might be able to get done. That was my thinking. So, is that how it played out? Not really. Yes, I went with a flanking maneuver, but that is about the extent of it. It is a very, very, very quick game. It's only 7 minutes, but I'm going to pause it every now and then and just highlight some stuff. The tool that I'm using on screen, by the way, is called Epic Pen. It's a free thing that you can download. I'll link to it in the description. And this is, by the way, against a second lieutenant, so he's a higher rank than I am. Alright, force composition. The flanking force is 2 Roycott 76s. Why 2? Why not just 1 or 2 recons? Because they're 10 points more expensive. And this way I have double the firepower. I have 2 Roycots instead of 1. And I get 2 Elons as well to provide further spotting for the 76s, even though these guys have medium optics. You can see that the Roycott 76s are going off-road, the Elons are not. The Elons are 95 kilometer off-road speed, these are 120, so they decide that roads are boring and they just completely go cross-country until they hit another road. Anti-air defense, very, very light. It's only 1 cactus, but it's still an investment of 60 points there. What else? I got the XH1 Alpha, which is going to scout forward. We have a Buffel and Casper K-Car. These two are going to make their way here. That's the plan. I want to try and take these buildings and not just, well, not do much of anything else here. The rest of my force, 2 Roycott 105s, are going to go along with the main force here, so I can potentially flank either there or there. And, I mean, not flank units as they're moving into the forest, but try and snipe units as they're moving towards that forest. Column is being led by a cactus. We got 2 units of Rattle 20, so that's the Mech Inf. A couple of Rattle 20 Milans with the Bokop. Rattle 81, mortar support, and 2 more Rattle 20s with more Mech Inf. Unfortunately, the column encounters a small problem. There's a Mirage 111C coming in. That is the French napalm bird. In fact, there's 2 of them. And I immediately get my guys off the road, but completely unnecessary because the fire drops there. And not just there, but also here. It's like he was banking on me trying to maneuver around. And of course, it is ranked, so he has no idea what I'm trying to run with. Then a couple of Puma pirates arrive. Considering that these are Puma pirates of this rank, the chance that this is actual commando infantry is really high. So I try and get the cactus into range, but I messed that up. But I do drop off the SASF, which immediately proceeds to try and take out one of the pirates. But since these boys are so close together, they get hit. And they both get taken out with 2 stingers. That was fortunate. At the same time, the Casper K car gets engaged by the Tiger, and there is not that much that I can do about that. Because aside from the from the SASF, I cannot do much against them, and even then, the Snap is 2100 meter range, I'm 2275. If they really want to mess me up, they can. In the meanwhile, the rest of the column proceeds undaunted forward. But something else of note. This, and this. He has captured 2 sectors, so that is 200 points in CVs extra, and 100 points per bomber. So from his initial starting points, he bought 1 CV for Echo as mandatory, another CV for Charlie, that's 200 points, 300 points for Foxtrot, 400, 500 points if you want to calculate as well for the 2 bombers. He's got a Tiger, so that is 640 points. I took out his Commander Marines. He basically has nothing. I can just move in. The flanking force is still well on their way. Now, the Tiger is fortunately distracted with the K-cars, and it then proceeds to try and engage a Buffel. Over here I have a small skirmish, and it turns out that these are Panzer Grenadiers as brought up by a Martyr. And of course, well, it doesn't go very well for the Martyrs. Unfortunately, I do take autocannon fire from here, and I lose, I think, both of the 105s. But both of my Rattles are immediately providing fire support against the Martyrs and allowing my infantry to hopefully move. Column is still moving. The SASF, I think... Have they taken down the Tiger or no? I'm not sure. The Commander Marines... Oh yeah, right. Let me cover this. The Rattle-20 Milans were not in the initial deployment, but because they're so quick, I called these in just after the game started. Because they're so quick, they immediately got here before the Commander Marines even recovered from their crash and are still trying to get to the building. And those Rattle-20s are not having any of that. So they immediately proceed to take out the Commander Marines before they get into the building. At least they try and hose them down, and there we go, hardened, telling me that they're dead. And this is where I kind of stall, because I don't really know what I'm facing. I just start to calculate that maybe he does not have that much. So SASF move into the building, the Braugh move into the building, mostly a holding force backed up by a couple of trackers. This is not really how it should be done. The Rattle-20 Milans, as well as Rattle-20s and more Rattle-20 moving forward, don't really push through a force without infantry screening first. But I thought that he might not have that much. Now he comes in with another 2 bombers. That's both the F-111Cs. The French ones, that is. So the Mirages, not the F-111s. Oh, sorry, it's the 111. It's not the F-111. That's how I should say that. He napalms the buildings. Okay, I'll just not go to the buildings then, I guess. And instead, I decide to keep moving forward. And there's nothing. Because the Panzer Grenadiers are in there, and they cannot do anything. I kept the Mech-Inf here back, trying not to get these Panzer Grenadiers an opportunity to move forward. And over here, interestingly, I find VAP 2013s, elites, or at least one of them is elite, after taking out, I think, both of the 105s, and a bunch of Legionnaires. Legionnaires are on the move, which means that they cannot fire their anti-tank weapon. So that's nice. That gives me an opportunity to just hose them down before they try and get to the buildings. But I have no idea where he's trying to go with these. Because, yes, they're moving forward, but they're moving forward towards a napalm screen. This whole area is inaccessible. The SASF find a VAP 2013. Or rather, one finds the other. I'm just not sure. Yeah, I spot it, but it doesn't spot me. And here we have the Rattles squaring it off with the VAP 2013s. But this is more interesting. Rattle 20 and the Rattle 20 Milan are over here engaging some more VABs. And there is a bunch of infantry that just got dropped off by these transports. I think he wasn't expecting me to push this fast this far. But then again, that is what South Africa does best. So dropping off the Mech-Inf, using the VAP 2013, using the Rattle 20s to get the VABs. These things are fairly evenly matched. This was a weird kill as well. A Peace Rhine killed a Rattle 20. That seems like an excessively expensive unit at the tune of 100 points. That's another 100 points that he's not deploying ground forces. Excessively expensive in order to kill a very, very cheap transport. In the meanwhile, the rest of the column, my flanking force is still on the move, and they still have not seemingly been detected. Mech-Inf move forward, and hey-ho, what's that? It's a 5-man squad inside of a sector that was captured. Interesting. Shame if something happened to your command infantry. I switched the Mech-Inf over to deal with the Rima first, because I want to try and get rid of the Rima before they start to take out my Mech-Inf, and the Rattles are immediately, the 81s that is, are providing fire support against the Führungsgruppe. I need to get that command infantry down. He buys another bomber. And as somebody recently said in the comments, consider your air tab as a flying support tab. It might be able to give you a temporary advantage. It might be able to give you temporary support, but beyond that, they're not that great. So this Mirage 5F that comes in is another 100 points that he's not deploying in ground forces. So to tally up, we've seen a Peace Rhine for 100 points. We've seen 2 100 points French napalm bombers. And now he's bringing in another bomber. But why? He needs ground forces, because I'm very close to getting rid of his 2-pointer. And yes, he still has Foxtrot, and I have only now deployed my 2-pointer, because I was still trying to get more forces in. But I just don't get it. The Caspier moves forward under cover from the Roykat. The Roykat, in this case, is going to be useful, because I can outrange the VAP 2013s. And these things are 15 points, but they're able to very effectively suppress my infantry, so I want to get rid of them. Casper Mark II is transporting the Buffaloes. And here comes the offensive. This is when my heart was really pounding. Because this was really where it was going to get a make or break moment. Arguably, without this push, I might still have been able to win it, but I wasn't sure. The Führungsgruppe are almost down. And I think it's eventually the mortars that take them out. There's the command unit. Right there, the P4C. Roykot takes it out. Elon spotted it, and that's it. Immediately after that thing gets killed off, the entirety of his air tap is eliminated. It's no longer a factor. He simply cannot call them in. So that is about 500 points at this stage, immediately out of the fight. That really helps. And of course, aside from that, he cannot call in any reinforcements. So, take up defensive positions. I should have split these things up, but hey-ho. The Roykots over there and the Elons over here, because I was kind of worried that the CV from here could make it back down the road, or a CV from here could potentially try and sneak through the forest and then, again, make it into the sector. So I wanted to cover both areas of approach. And, well, his CV here does get killed off by the Ratels, meaning he has only one CV and very, very little opportunity to get back into his spawn. So, in a few seconds, he surrenders. And that was a very, very quick game. Very, very quick. 670 points in kills, 410 points in losses, especially the losses early on of the Roykot 105s at the hands of, the VAP 2013, Russo, killed both of them. These things are very, very fragile. Glass cannons, considering what I was trying to do, I think the Roykot 76 would have been enough. You don't really need the 105s there. But then again, I'm still trying to get used to this deck. Again, would I recommend South Africa in ranked if you want to win? Not really. But I just really enjoy playing with South Africa. I think it's a great, fun deck. Yes, you're going to have to work around some of its weaknesses. You're probably not going to make Brigadier General with it. But when you're just trying to have fun with the game, as I'm trying to do in ranked, then yes, it is an interesting deck and it's fun to play with. Alright, I hope this video was useful. If it was, please give it a like so more people can find it. If you have any suggestions, recommendations, or outright disagreements, let me know down below in the comments. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon for more.